Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars. SoundCartel. The idea of being your own boss or owning your own business can seem like a utopia, offering flexibility and work-life balance. But does it? Many a business owner might tell you otherwise. From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. It's an illusion. Between deadlines and expectations from every angle, owning your own business comes with its own stress and impacts on mental health. Leanne Faulkner, founder of Fortitude at Work and a small business mental health advocate, says a lot of business ownership is about building and balancing your personal power so as not to lose customers, clients or staff. Leanne is talking to me about how to find well-being in the challenge of business ownership.
I think we all, in small business, we enjoy that notion of working for ourselves, not reporting to somebody else and having that level of flexibility. But in the research that I've been doing throughout my PhD, I've come to learn that actually we perhaps don't always have as much power and control over our destiny as we think. And that's because of the demands that we have working with our customers and our clients. So, for example, you might say to me, I just love the freedom because I can go on a bush hike whenever I want to. I can work at night if I want to, or work during the day. I can pick and choose what I do. But if I say to you, that's fantastic. And what happens though if the client brings their deadline forward? Do you go back to the client then and say, look, I'm really sorry, I can't do that because I'm going kayaking this morning? Quite often that small business owner will say, no, I have to reorganise things and I'll pull a 14-hour day because, if the client says they want it, I can't risk not giving it to them. And so the reality of owning a small business and having that flexibility really is, in many instances, I do have flexibility, but typically it's between when the client tells me I have to do something for them. It's quite different, right?
Right, absolutely. There tends to be a negative association when it comes to the word power. It's often thought of as perhaps narcissistic, particularly if you're talking about managers or upper management. What are your thoughts on this, Leanne?
Yes, I totally agree. And when I started to see this theme emerge out of my data, I immediately thought, I can't talk about that term power. But when I got further into the data and the details and what it really meant, I quickly realised that we're not actually talking about this evil connotation of power. So we're not talking Dr. Evil. We're not talking Gordon Gekko, where greed is good and power at all costs. I'm actually talking about the Oprah Winfrey take on power, which is being able to harness our personal fortitude to be able to survive the tough times, which we all inevitably face, and to harness that resilience within ourselves to push through that and still thrive in business.
Well, you have 3 key actions that owners can take to build up their personal power. And the first is to determine your own boundaries. How can business owners do this?
Well, look, I know we all know we should have a mix of work-life balance and all of those things, and that's nothing new in that area. But my argument is that if we're able to establish some form of boundary around when we do and don't work, or even call out when we have flexibility and when we don't, which is a very good first step, just be honest about that, then we will actually begin to feel more powerful and in control of what we're doing and how we do it. So those boundaries might be the obvious things like I don't work on the weekends, my phone goes in flight mode after, 6 o'clock at night. They might be those simple things, or they might just be, look, I have flexibility when I don't have a deadline on and I'm going to enjoy that. If we don't establish those boundaries within ourselves up front, sometimes we can build up resentment, particularly if we've been in business for a very long time. So if I'd been in a startup and I've only been in my business for a couple of years, it's probably okay to be working 60 hours a week because I'm starting up. I'm getting my business off the ground. It's like a badge of honour for some people. But if I've been in business for 10 years and I'm still working 60 hours a week, well, that's a very different take. That can lead to resentment and burnout and just feeling over it. Don't want to do it anymore. So boundaries help us to begin to take back some of our personal power just by being honest with ourselves as first step.
Yeah. Your second action then is to recognise what gives you a sense of freedom. Tell us about this one.
Oh, look, this was perhaps the most fascinating learning that I've gotten out of my PhD so far. It is those small business owners who feel that they have the most power and control are the ones who feel less stressed and better able to survive, I guess, the tough times in their business. So by this, I would suggest that small business owners take a moment, over a cup of tea and say this sentence and then complete it. I feel most powerful when, and then complete the sentence. So I'll give you some examples.
Sure.
I feel most powerful when I've got some good cash in the bank. I feel most powerful when I can see in my sales pipeline I'm booked up for the next 3 months. I feel most powerful when I've planned my week ahead and I know what's coming up for me in that week. I've got control of my week. So, look, I've just given you examples. We're all individuals, so it would be, everyone inserting their own instance. But the key to this is to be really honest. And I've actually found most often that those small business owners who do have some money in the bank, so they're not going from one client to another going, I need this job to pay my mortgage, they've got a bit of money in the bank, or those clients who can see ahead in their sales forecast and know that they've got sales coming up, are most confident to be able to say, for example, a customer shortens a deadline, to be able to say to that customer, as a matter of fact, I'm not able to do that at this point in time. I'll have to stick to our original agreed deadline. And they're confident to do that because nothing else is at stake. So they have personal power to be able to assert themselves. So that's my second tip.
Yeah, fantastic. And the third key action you suggest is to be proactive managing the client relationship. But what does this look like in practice?
I hate to steal off Covey, but I'm sure he won't mind. We need to begin with the end in mind, right? So if you've not read Gerber's book, the E-Myth, yes, it's old, but go grab an old copy secondhand. He talks about systems, and I do think this is the key. So if we are as transparent as possible with our clients and we have a client management system in place, and I'm talking about, say, for example, in the service sector, perhaps you're a web developer, right? If I have a very clear system in place that explains our working relationship up front, that I send to my client right at the moment of signing them up on board, this is what you can expect from me. This is what I need from you to get the job done. And we have a very transparent, open system. Then when things change, when the boundaries change, the demands change, the expectations change, I have a process that I can immediately fall back on and say, can I refer you back to our agreed way of trading or our agreed processes? So suddenly I'm not being drawn into this emotive battle that says, oh, they want more from me and I'm feeling a little bit resentful or I'm missing out on something. If that's the case, what I can do is refer back to my system and comfortably manage that client and manage their expectations. So put systems in place and share those systems with the client.
Do you think this idea of personal power is realised by many business owners, or is it lacking somewhat?
I think it's lacking. Look, I think some of the things we know, common sense. We know common sense about doing it. But what we don't know is the reasons why we need to do it. And I think being able to, and this is hot off the press, emerging from my data, this notion of power and it's linked to our mental health. I think if we take the time to understand why it's important, then we're more likely to implement some of these things. And if we get honest with ourselves and say, why am I feeling stressed? Why am I feeling anxious? Well, my research is showing that quite often it's because we're feeling we have no control over the situation. And no control is actually no power. I don't feel powerful in this. I don't feel the relationship is equal. If the client says I want it, I feel like I immediately have to say yes because I can't risk losing them. And that means I don't feel powerful enough to assert what I need in the relationship. So, yeah, we need to start having more discussions about this. And we need to be bringing all of the people that we work with, we need to bring them into this discussion to say, listen, the way I interact with you, the way I work with you has an impact on the power relationship that we have here in business. And that's a good, healthy discussion to have.
That was Leanne Faulkner, small business mental health advocate and founder of Fortitude at Work. For more about Leanne and her small business mental health advocacy, go to fortitudeatwork.com.au or to the link in the show notes of this episode. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow @BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.